What would you do when the power goes out? How many of us know how to survive in the cold with no water and no food? How many of us know how to defend ourselves from predators?
As a general rule, I think we are all underprepared to deal with a natural disaster or a fairly large-scale crisis that should happen in the Lower Mainland. And I think people need to recognize that they need to look after themselves for at least the first 72 hours.
Make sure that you're okay, make sure your loved ones are okay, and then check around your house to make sure it's safe.
Well, if it's a life or death situation, you have to fight. You have no choice, right?
It's not like the movies. It's not like the stuff that you see in the movies. Things happen very fast, and you just have to react to it.
So when I teach survival, I teach you the basics of how to get things done. If you don't know how to do the crisscross knot, do something that's going to make sure that your poles aren't going to fall. It's not about doing it exactly the way that we do it here. It's about doing it effectively, and this is about sharing ideas.
Mixed martial arts legend Dennis Kang, having fought in the UFC and Pride. Kang is a very technical boxer and black belt jiu-jitsu fighter.
And because in an MMA fight, you have a chance to prepare, you know the fight is coming, and there's a referee, you want to be there. A street fight, you don't necessarily want the fight to happen, and usually you're caught off guard. A street fight usually happens kind of spur of the moment, unexpectedly.
That takedown is hard to stop.
Because when you're you have to remember, being in a street altercation, a big part is going to be fear, right? Because you're scared. You're not in control. All of a sudden, you don't know who it's going to be. It's a bunch of guys jumping you, some gang members, or a big dude at the bar who's got a broken beer bottle, right? So what do? Do you cower in fear and let yourself be stabbed or be beaten up, or do you take control of the situation and attack first? And that's what I mean when I say that it's all mental, is you have to be fearless. Even though you might be afraid, you have to say, screw it, I'm going to attack and I'm not going to be a victim, and you have to be the one that's launching the offensive.
You are, by law, entitled to use a certain amount of force to protect yourself, protect your property, or protect another person. But again, that force needs to be reasonable. So the force that you're using to protect yourself is in direct proportion to the amount of force that someone else is using on you. If somebody should come at you with a weapon and you should use some form of an object as a weapon in your own self-defense, then that would be up to the courts to decide if you'd be criminally charged for that.
You can carry your weight and throw little punches.
For one-on-one combat, I don't think there's one most efficient martial art. I think you need to have a combination of striking and grappling, because you never know where the fight can go. A lot of people will say that all fights end up on the ground, which is true, but all fights also start standing up, right? So you got to have, proficiency with boxing, and you got to have balance as well, so that the fight does not go to the ground. And if it does go to the ground, then you got to know what to do if you end up there.
People think survival and they automatically go to the wilderness. The mindset that I'm trying to train is that an earthquake can happen, the power can go out, floods can happen. So we need to be prepared wherever we are. animals, we need four things. We need food, shelter, water, and space. So in the home, you need food that doesn't need a can opener and it's not perishable. So shelter, you need some way to make a shelter in the event that your home or something around there has been destroyed. So tarps are good things to have. Even your tents are good things to have if you're in the home. So that's food, shelter, water. Really good idea to have a water purification method or even spare water kicking around. So what happens in an event of a flood or an earthquake is our water resources become contaminated as sewages flow over, as water rises, pipes break. So what we're used to being able to turn on the tap and enjoy a glass of water, now that water coming into our homes is contaminated. So have a water purification tablet or some kind of water purification straw that you can still get your water, because that is actually more essential than your food. And space, make sure that you're able to create a space for yourself and your family.
With downed power lines, of course, we never know if they're live or not, or if they're telephone lines, if they're cable, or if they're actual power lines. So if you see wires on the ground, always assume that they're live power lines. If your house is serviced by natural gas, there could be leaking natural gas. So know what natural gas smells like, or if you hear hissing, or if you see your meter spinning out of control, then learn how to shut off your natural gas properly. Water leaks, if there's water pouring into your house, find out where the water shutoff is and how to use it. Don't ever put yourself in harm's way. If you want to stop and help someone at a car accident or something like that, always make sure you're protected.
Weapons instructor Toby Reyes, an expert in knife and stick fighting in the Callus Illustrissimo system.
I've lived in a pretty rough country, and you don't want to get into any trouble there unless you absolutely have to. Avoid it. Avoidance is number one. But when you're there, when you're in the moment, and you know that there's no other way to run, that's when you fight. A good knife fighter feels any a block or anything that would stop the strike, he's gonna go again. Or even if he has both hands here, go hard. Yeah. Even if he had both hands here and he's trying to trap you, all you need to do is what we call a pluma in the system that I train in, Illustrissimo. You'll just go that way. So the real way to parry an attack would not be to block or to do that because you're going force and force. It should be an insert. It's like a clinch. You go in and you sidestep to the left, or you twist your hips to the left. That's how it goes. So, boom, over here. Go a little faster just for me to show you how it goes. Goes here. So, to really understand it, you go inside. Once you're here, it's not really that much of a threat, because when it comes to knife fighting or with blade fighting, the only business portion of a blade would be the tip and the edge. Any other part of it, you could touch it. It doesn't matter. These aren't lightsabers. A lot of people forget that. A lot of people treat it like once you get touched by the knife, you're gonna get cut. No, that's not the way it goes. Again, a lot of people do it this way. That's not good. Even if I do it with both hands in, there you go. That's not good. What you need to do again is that insert that I showed you. Go in, go in. If he had both hooks in, I'm dead. Anyone who knows jiu-jitsu knows that you're dead. It needs to be here. You really need to hug on this, because if not, once it straightens out, you're dead. So you really need to put it here and have your other hand as a shield. I can't do anything. because she got my arm trapped and my elbows are extended. Once it's straight, you're safe. And she's just gonna twist around. Yep, change grips. Then pull her weight down while, yeah, there you go. It's not like the movies. It's not like the stuff that you see in the movies. Things happen very fast, and you just have to react to it. Same concept. You go in, once you have it here, all you need to do is control the arm and go for the arm bar. Speed's not really that important in my opinion when you're starting. Of course, speed would make a difference, but a lot of times I've seen a lot of people compromise their technique, or they try to hide their inefficiency with speed, and that's wrong.
We need to reach out to the offender and let them know that, hey, we're watching, we're looking for you. So if you are looking to attack a woman or a man, and that does happen, then the full weight of the police force is looking for you and is coming after you. So it's culturally changing how we look at victimization and focusing on the offender and letting the offender know that we are coming for you if you commit a violent offense, specifically a violent offense against a woman. We will be coming after you and we will be finding you.
Animals that we need to worry about in the colder climates. Black bears, a little bit. If they're unhealthy, they'll kind of challenge you, maybe attack you. Most of the black bears that I've seen kind of see it's a human and they don't want anything to do with it. Grizzly bears, on the other hand, they're kind of jerks. They're very territorial. If you're in their area, you're fair game. So they're definitely an issue. And cougars. It's not usually the older cats that we have to worry about, like the very old that are sick, but our healthy cougars we don't really need to worry about. It's the very young ones that are establishing their hunting territory and their ability to hunt, and it's the older ones who are a little bit weaker that will challenge a human. When I load for protection, it's shot, and then slug. So we like to try and give the animal an opportunity to make the decision not to attack. If they don't make that decision, then the slugs will finish them off. So this is call her Princess. She comes with us hiking all the time. It's what we hike with our clients in case we have any encounters with bear, cougar. Right now in our region we have a huge issue with timber wolves, so we pack lots. There's always wolf tracks wherever we go, and this is a short range firearm that will keep everybody in the wilderness safe. So I pack a plant guide for British Columbia in my kit, simply because it's almost impossible to know everything from border to border. Some rules of thumb are, if they're in groups of 3, don't eat them. So you want to look for things like your huckleberries, your blueberries, your saskatoons that grow individually. There's also your wild raspberries and blackberries that you can eat. And a lot of the leaves, like especially the raspberry leaves and the strawberry leaves, are also they're very good. They're medicinal. Kind of as a blanket perspective, poison ivy likes to rocket out into lots of different places, so don't eat that. Unless you know your mushrooms inside out, don't eat mushrooms in a survival situation. White willow and birch bark, you peel that down and you can boil it for a tea, and that relieves inflammation and pain.
Make sure you've got an ample amount of wood set to the side like I've got here. Well, I've got a small supply over here. A very common mistake is people will get just this small step here done, light their fire, and then be scrambling for wood and actually have it go out and have to relight from ashes after they've burnt all their tinder. because they didn't have a supply of larger wood to progress with, and fire burnt out because there was no fuel for it. With the style of a starter that we use, helps if you just make a small hole in the bottom of the fire that you can easily get it into. That way you can light this, stick it right in underneath everything, and then it'll light right up almost like a candle.
When you're starting a fire, you only have flame until you actually start to hear the fire crackle. When the fire starts to crackle, you know that your tinder is to the point, it's called combustion point. And that's when the wood that you're using is actually warmed up enough to burn and to combust. That's why the colder it is, the harder it is to light a fire, because it takes longer for your tinder and the wood that you're using to warm up to actually hit that combustion point where we get heat from it. The survival sequence is first aid, fire, shelter, and then water. So when you have an incident, the very first thing that you do is tend to any injuries, any bleeding that may have occurred during any accident. Then you build your fire, you build a shelter, and then you get water. We're not even going to deal with food yet, because you can live 3 weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. So we want to get the water right away. Now in the winter, what we're going to do for our water source is to melt snow. You can't eat snow. And as we do this demonstration, you'll see why. This much snow, it's all packed in here nice and tight, is only going to give us a little bit of water in the bottom. And if we were to eat that snow directly, the process of melting the snow in our mouth actually is taking hydration from our body. So when we eat snow, we're going against our goal of hydrating our body. We're actually putting it into a process of dehydration. Boiled water, boil it for 2 minutes, and it's clean. There is ways of doing it with gravel, there's ways of doing it with pine needles, and if you have a fire, you can also take that charcoal and filter it through the charcoal. The choice of carrying 100 feet of rope or 100 feet of dental floss, which is going to take up the least space in your pack. I do a crisscross applesauce because the X is one of the strongest ways to tie this. So it's a cross on the bottom and a cross on the top. One thing I want to express is that it doesn't matter how the job gets done. So when I teach survival, I teach you the basics of how to get things done. If you don't know how to do the crisscross knot, do something that's going to make sure that your poles aren't going to fall. It's not about doing it exactly the way that we do it here. It's about doing it effectively, and this is about sharing ideas on how it's worked for us for the last 20 plus years of instructing survival. So what the frame is, it consists of our main beam and then these support poles here. So the support poles create the main structure, and then he's woven some of the softer, smaller green boughs through. So we essentially have a grid. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the green boughs from the trees that we've cut down and a few others that we've harvested and make about a 6-inch layer. The heat comes from the fire. It reflects off of the green wall that we have behind it, and then it comes into the shelter. As you can see, it fits me just perfectly. I don't want to have any extra space in here. Extra space means extra air that I need to warm up. This is going to be refracting the heat back down onto me. And actually just being in here and out of the wind, I'm much warmer than I was when I was outside the heat from the fire through the night, I bet you I will probably be about 15 to 18 degrees in this shelter on a night like tonight. Tonight we'll probably get down to about -5 or 6 with snow cover. So having a shelter like this definitely keeps you a long ways away from hypothermia or exposure. We're talking about disaster response. We're talking about, you might have a hospital, but it might not have electricity. It might be flooding, so you don't have the tools that you're used to having. If you've got a wilderness first aid, an advanced or a wilderness first responder course, you know how to take care of a situation with absolute minimal equipment. We are able to suture, we can clear C-spines, we can give femur traction, we can give humerus traction. There's things that we can do over and above, and we do them with sticks. We do them with long sleeves of shirts that have been cut off. We do them with paracord, triangular bandages, anything that we have. But most of all, above any of that, you need the training to use any and all of that stuff, and you need the practice to go out and do it.
The most common cause of fires is discarded smoking materials. About 62% of our call volume is medical calls, and we go to anything from traumatic calls, injuries, falls, lacerations, breaks, burns, obstetrical calls. In addition to that, we also attend motor vehicle incidents with a fairly high rate of frequency, and of course structure fires.
We know that during a fairly significant or large incident, there is going to be pandemonium, there is going to be panic in the streets, there is going to be some chaos that ensues, and our job as a police force is not to try and police or enforce during that, it's to try and educate in advance of where you can go to get help.
So how did modern man leave the Neanderthals in the past? We outsmarted our larger, stronger predecessors with our communication, our intelligence, and our skills. But somehow, over the last 100 years, we lost touch with survival because of technology. We are so plugged into a virtual world, we became oblivious. In the city, we forgot how to farm, how to hunt, how to survive. And in the face of disaster, that is not good enough. So like the heroes who protect us, rescue us, heal us, and teach us, we need to make survival an everyday part of our lives.
And having a plan for your family, where you should meet, how you contact each other, are your phone lines going to be down, are there dangers in your home? As a father, I've got young kids, and it's something I talk about with my kids. It's something I talk about with their educators, where they're going to be. If I'm away at work, what's going to happen to my kids if they're left in charge of a capable teacher at a school? Where am I going to come to pick up my friends and my family? So it's planning in advance, educating yourself, and preparing for that worst case scenario. Then anything less than that worst case scenario should be a piece of cake.